Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are from group 4, consists of my friend Ermalati Putri and I, Miftahunajah Aditiya Pratama, will present about discourse and society. And this course is lectures by Dr. Ismail Petrus, MA, and Professor Diemroh Ihsan, MA, Ph.D. Okay, our objectives now is discourse communities and speech communities and spoken and written discourse, discourse and language choice, discourse social class and social networks. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, let us talk about discourse communities and speech communities. You know, one of the fundamental concepts in discourse analysis is the idea of a discourse community. So, what's a discourse community? Well, it's a group of people who share common activities. They have their own unique ways of talking to each other, shared goals, and often shared values and beliefs. Sometimes a person can belong to more than one discourse community. For example, you could be a university student, a volunteer in a community organization, and a member of some other group, all at the same time. Swalls 1990 came up with some characteristics to help us identify a discourse community. First, they should have common goals, a way to communicate, and a method for sharing information among themselves. They also have their own lingo, jargon, and a high level of expertise in their field. These goals can be official, like in clubs, or more unspoken, like in some informal groups. Now let us think about a telephone call center. That is one of example of a discourse community. Those phone operators are trained to talk to customers in specific ways. They gotta sound friendly and confident, not too loud or too quiet, and they need to make sure the customer knows they are understood. It's a whole language in itself. Discourse community don't live in a vacuum. They interact with larger speech communities. For example, the academic discourse community of students and scholars also interacts with the town or city's speech community where their university is located. Now, let's not get too carried away. This notion of discourse community isn't always cut and dry. Within this community, we can often find smaller sub-communities, like David 2004 suggested 3 types: communities, collectives, and networks. Communities are like groups of people who spend a lot of time together, such as co-workers in an office. Collectives are folks with a shared interest, like beekeeping enthusiasts or volunteers in a phone advice service. And networks, well, they are more loosely connected, like people who communicate through email without ever meeting in person. Okay. Moving on to speech communities, this term is broader than discourse community and plays a big role in spoken and written discourse. In general linguistics, it means any group of people who speak the same language, like French, English, or German. But in sociolinguistics, they narrow it down to those who not only speak the same language, but also have the chance to interact with each other. Not everyone in a speech community needs to know all the languages or varieties spoken within it, but they should know when it's appropriate for others to use them. Okay. Special communities, speech communities, I mean, are crucial for effective communication, especially in our globalized world. Take call centers for example. Some have moved to places where people speak Japanese fluently, but callers from Japan don't always realize they are talking to someone in China. Misunderstanding can happen, so some call centers hire Japanese speakers to give the impression of speaking within the same speech community. Okay, now let us define a speech community a bit more. So it's not just about language, it's influenced by social, geographic, cultural, political, ethnic, racial, age, and gender factors. People can belong to multiple speech communities and they might switch between them even within a single conversation. But not everyone in speech community is a full-fledged member, just like in discourse community. In a second language settings, for example, someone might only partially participate in the target speech community. This depends on things like when they join and what the community expect from second language speakers. And and speech communities can be separate, overlap, or intersect with each other. People often have various social identities, each tied to different ways of talking and expressing themselves. So maybe that's all from me, and next material will be presented by my friend. Thank you.
I would like to continue to the next explanation, which is about discourse and language choice. Discourse and language choice are important concepts in the field of linguistics and communication studies because they refer to how individuals or groups use language in various social contexts to convey their intended messages and achieve specific communication goals. People often have different social identities and belong to various groups of people with whom they interact. They may also know and use different languages when communicating in different groups, and this is common in many parts of the world. Language choice means choosing the right language for a certain situation. The language choice or language variety may be determined by the domain the language is being used in, such as with family, among friends, and in religious or educational and employment settings. People choose languages based on who they are talking to, where they are, and what they want to say. Sometimes people might use one language at home and other at work, or switch between languages depending on who they are with. According to Holmes 2001, there are several social factors in language choice, such as first, social context interaction, and the second, the topic, function, and goals of interaction. The third is the formality of the setting and type of interaction. Next, it's the factor of social distance between speakers and also the social status. So these factors influence people to choose the language. Based on the article in Singapore Sunday Times 2005, teenagers there use special words and phrases when talking with their friends. They do this to feel closer to each other and to keep their conversations private. For example, they might make up words like CCG, which means cute guy, or CMI for cannot make it. These words really help them to talk about certain things without others understanding. It's like their secret code. So from this example, we know that people can use a specific way of speaking to connect with a bigger group or with their groups, and they also use it to understand each other. Another example from a book written by Trust 2003, which title is Eats, Shoots and Lives. This book is written in standard British English, but it is popular in the US, UK, and Australia. Therefore, the way people choose and use language in conversation is connected to the context and the people we are talking to. We might choose formal language for serious situations like a job interview, and more relaxed language we can use it when we are chatting with our friends. And the language we pick also really help us to show respect, build connections, and get the messages across clearly. And then the next, it is about discourse, social class, and social networks. So social class is also a factor that can affect how people communicate each other. To determine the social class, people usually look at things like what job someone has, their level of education, and also the factors of how money they make, how much money they make, where they live, and even their housing situation. People from different social classes may use language differently. Social class can influence not only the words people choose but also their communication style and tone. Other things like religion, hobbies, and being part of community groups can also help identify social groups. Sometimes, even if people seem similar in terms of the social class, they can use language very differently when they interact in different social groups or use different types of language for various situations. And for the social networks, also influence the way to communicate. For example, if you belong to a tight-knit group of friends who have their own slang and communication style, you may adopt that style when talking to them. Similarly, if you work in a professional setting, you may also use more formal discourse. People often have different social networks based on family, religion, and the place where they live, where they work, and their common activities. These social networks also can strongly influence how the people talk and maintain their specific way of speaking. A study in Belfast showed that the stronger and more closely knit a social network is, the more it affects how people talk and keep their language unique. In simple words, the people you spend a lot of time with also can influence how you communicate. And the relationship between the social class and social networks, the social class can also influence the composition of the social networks, because people from the same social class associate with others who share similar backgrounds and experiences. This can lead to the reinforcement of certain language patterns and communication styles within those networks. Therefore, the social class and social networks both play a role in how people express themselves through language. When people communicate, they are not just conveying information, they are also showing that what kind of people they are. In conclusion, discourse, social class, and social networks are interconnected aspects of how people communicate. They shape the way individuals express themselves and interact with others, and they often reflect the broader social and cultural context in which communication takes place. Alright, so that's all our group explanations. Thank you for your attention. See you.